I'm often asked which is better, being an employee or being an entrepreneur, since I've kind of tested both sides of the spectrum. Now, there is no better in these two. It's up to you to decide what kind of a person you are. Now, it's very important that you know your personality so that you can decide whether you want to go down the job route or whether you want to go down the entrepreneurship route. So, to make your life a little simple, what I've done is today I have listed the pros and cons of being an employee versus the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, now in case of an employee, let's first look at the advantages of being an employee. Okay, so you have leave benefits, which is an amazing advantage. You know clearly at the beginning of the year what are the kind of leaves you're going to get, when you're going to get, you have everything in place. Alright, apart from leave, you also have various other benefits, like you've got your insurance benefits, your medical benefit, health benefit, various other benefits. Alright, then the second advantage that an employee has is a fixed income. The employee knows by the start of the next month this is the kind of money he has and this is how he has to operate all his expenses. Alright, so there is clarity and there's nothing unpredicted as such. It's very predictable that this is the kind of money that is going to come into my bank account by so and so date. Alright, and finances are planned accordingly. The next advantage of an employee is the fixed working hours. Well, almost fixed working hours, I would like to put it that way, because I do know that there are quite a few companies where employees work for longer than 8 hours, but still there is some sort of a clarity in terms of the range of hours that you're working. Alright, so the employees know what are their working hours like, and apart from that, the kind of responsibility that an employee has as compared to an entrepreneur is less. So typically an employee knows that this is the job role assigned to him and these are the kind of tasks that need to be performed. He does not have to bother about the work of across the company. All he needs to take care about is the specific task given to him. He does not care if another division of the company is doing well or not. Alright, so these are certain advantages of being an employee. Now let's look at the disadvantages of being an employee. So the first disadvantage is there's dependency. The employee has to constantly depend on the boss's orders and at the same time he is dependent on his team members in order to get work done. Alright, so that's a disadvantage. He's also dependent on a fixed income for running the rest of his month. So I would like to put it as dependency on one source of income. Alright, then again, the second disadvantage is that there's limited income coming in his pocket. So irrespective whether he puts in little effort or he puts in a lot of effort, the only difference is that he might get more incentives at the most, but again the base package remains the same and he literally has to wait for a pay rise in order to increase his income. And the third one is called limited development scope. Now in this case, an employee has very limited scope when it comes to learning and developing as a person. So for example, if he's in a particular industry, learning might be better. He might be able to advance in his career. But if he wants to shift his industry, then in that case, the learning curve might go down. And again, the kind of choices for career progression are very limited. Alright, so that's the third disadvantage. Now the fourth disadvantage is job security, where I would like to put it as in such a competitive space, people have become disposable. There's no guarantee of a job being with you lifelong. Hence, this is a very big concern where people are not sure whether they're going to hang on to a particular job for long. There have been so many instances where people have not even been given the time to serve their notice period or hunt for another job. Alright, so these are some advantages and disadvantages of being an employee. Now let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of being an entrepreneur. Alright, so the first advantage of being an entrepreneur is amazing career growth. Now an entrepreneur gets to decide the kind of industry he wants to join, based on the market demand and various other factors, but there's flexibility in deciding what kind of industry is doing well, what kind of a growth is there in every particular industry, and the entrepreneur has the liberty to choose the industry where chances of growth are much higher. Then the second advantage of being an entrepreneur is that an entrepreneur is independent. He has no boss. He is his own boss, and all the decisions are meant to be taken by him. So when we typically talk in a corporate scenario, we say that the decision making is slow because the hierarchy, the management is such. Now, in case of an entrepreneur, he gets to decide the pace of his decisions. Alright, and of course he also gets to decide the kind of business model that he wants to work on. He gets to decide the kind of collaborations he wants to go for, the kind of contracts he wants to build, so on and so forth. Then the next advantage is flexible working hours. So an entrepreneur can decide where to work from, what time to work, when to work. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Then the next one is earning. So in case of an entrepreneur, he gets to decide the kind of monies that can come in his business based on the demand that are there for his products and services, based on his relationships in the market. The earning can increase or decrease, but typically compared to an employee, the earnings of an entrepreneur over a period of time are much higher. Alright, then the next one is change and explore. So that's a very big advantage where an entrepreneur can change as per the times. He can change his business model based on the demand. He can explore different avenues. He can explore different collaborations, networks, and various other things. So there's flexibility here where the entrepreneur can decide to operate from a different mode if needed. So these were certain advantages of being an entrepreneur. Now let's look at certain disadvantages of being an entrepreneur. Okay, the first one is stress. So be it stress due to taking risks, of stress of too much financial burden, stress of not earning well for the first few years, stress of not being able to pay bills on time, stress related to each and every little decision that has to be taken, stress of in fact handling everything alone as well. Because when you work, you have various departments. In case of an entrepreneur, he's the marketing person, he's the legal person, he's the one who's taking care of relationships, he's the one who's taking care of the products and various other factors. So there's a lot of stress when it comes to being an entrepreneur. Then the next disadvantage of being an entrepreneur is investment. Most businesses require a good amount of investment to get started. So quite a few entrepreneurs happen to be in debt because of the kind of loans they've taken from the market in order to have that capital for their businesses. Then the third disadvantage of being an entrepreneur is extremely long working hours. So it could be 18 days into 7 days a month, it could be 18 days into 7 days a week, it could be 20-hour days. On an average, entrepreneurs work close to 60 hours per week. Alright, because of which there is risk, there is stress, family relationships suffer, friendships kind of fade off, and personal life goes for a toss. There's less balance where most of the day is only given to work. There's little time for leisure and relaxation. And then you've got the fourth type of disadvantage, which is financial. So again, in this case, the first few years, there might be trouble with your disposable income. You may not have the monies to pay your bills, pay maybe your employees if you have any. You yourself will be in a mode where everything is unpredicted. You don't know what kind of money you're going to earn this month versus what kind of money you're going to earn next month. So the planning goes a little haywire in case of an entrepreneur. And then you've got the last disadvantage, which is risk. Be it risk of failing, risk of being in debt, being bankrupt, being in risk of imitation, risk of hungry competitors. So there are various kind of risks that an entrepreneur has to go on a daily basis. Alright, so I would like to say that entrepreneurship is definitely not for the faint-hearted. Now that being said, you've got a fair idea of the pros and cons of an employee versus an entrepreneur. You need to sit down and decide which is the path for you. Alright, because both have their goods, their bads. You need to decide which is something that you would happily want to continue for maybe the next 20-25 years of your life. Alright, so that's it for today. I'll catch you again very soon with yet another video. Bye-bye.